The First Law Standalones. Should you read them? Yes. Thanks for watching, guys. Hey, what's up, bookworms? Mike back today to talk a little more First Law. Today we're going to be kind of focusing on those standalones by Joe Abercrombie. This, of course, is Best Served Cold. This is The Heroes, and this is Red Country. I hope I held those up in the right order. So, guys, a frequently asked question I get about the First Law series overall is, okay, I read the first trilogy. I liked it. I want to read the sequel trilogy. Do I have to read those standalone books? Now, let me explain exactly what this is. Now, you had the original trilogy, and then you had these 3 books in a row that were pretty much standalone-ish. They were self-contained. You didn't have to read them to understand what was going on because it was different characters, it was different locations, but a lot of things that you might find familiar are going to be there. So the big question always is, do I need to read those before I move into the sequel trilogy? The short answer is no. You do not have to read them to understand the sequel trilogy. However, there are a lot of things that I think you would really add to your experience if you went ahead and read these. Now, with each of these, I feel like each one kind of had its different flavor. You know, like Best Served Cold was very much a revenge book. It was basically, imagine Joe Abercrombie writing The Count of Monte Cristo. And yes, it is as awesome as it sounds. It really, really is. So I think with that is, if you are into the kind of swashbuckling adventure story, I think you're going to find a lot that you really do enjoy here. Then when you get into The Heroes, and it is very much a in-the-trenches kind of war story, focusing more on the people on the ground level, you know, be it soldiers or fighters or soldiers of fortune, whatever it is, you kind of see it from that level. And I think that's something that is very, very visceral, and actually created a somewhat of a trope, an Abercrombie trope now that he continues to do in a lot of other books of his. To me, guys, trope isn't a bad word like some of you guys like to make it sound. And then you got Red Country, which is very much a Western, but instead of pistols, you got swords and shields. I say very much imagine like Sergio Leone's Fistful of Dollars. That's very much what you have here. So as you can tell, all 3 of these kind of have their own flavor, really. But the most important thing here is that you have characters that you've heard of before. If you've read the original trilogy, you've had the idea of who some of these characters are. There are some characters that are more in the forefront. There are some that were secondary characters that get bigger roles here. Now, I think the biggest one I got to mention here, guys, is Carl Shivers. Now, Carl Shivers very much is a character in books number 2 and 3 of that original trilogy, but this is where you get the time to shine for Carl Shivers. And here's the thing, I'm just like you. I was like, I don't think that I really wanted or asked for a trilogy that has Carl Shivers in it, because he's the only one that's in all 3 of these books. But I want to tell you guys that that is what Joe Abercrombie does the best, is he took a character that you'd be like, I don't know if I really needed more of that character, and he will make you give a damn about them one way or the other. Either you love to hate them or hate to love them, and that is no different with Carl Shivers here. So Carl definitely does come into his own here, and you will see why people in this series have such an affinity or hatred for Carl Shivers one way or the other. So I think that's the big one here for me. One of the biggest one, guys, is Nicomo Casca. He was one of my favorite parts of Before They Are Hanged, and his stuff with Glockta in there. But this, he does actually, especially Best Served Cold, have a huge role in this sequel, or not, sorry, this is in the sequel trilogy, sorry, these standalone books. Nicomo Casca does have a role to play, and it's great. He's basically your favorite drunk uncle, and I couldn't get enough of him in the original trilogy, so I was all on board with him being a bigger character in this one. You get Black Calder and Scale, that is the sons of Bethid, and they are much more multifaceted and layered than you might have actually thought when you were watching or reading that original trilogy, rather. I guess if you could watch it. I mean, I know people, at this point, they call it, reading if you're listening to it. Now, I'm going to call it watching if you read it. Black Calder and Scale are interesting characters, and I think that that's ones that you're going to see a little bit of divisiveness in the fan base about how they feel about these characters. But I love like I said, the layers that Joe gives them in this series. Shiloh Vitari, she does get a bigger role in one of these books here, so you will see her again. And I mean, it's like that. You have those original characters that show up, up. There are more. I don't want to kind of tell you all of them. Black Dow has some more stuff to get into, obviously, with the way that Last Argument of Kings ended. Black Dow obviously does have a big role to play, as does Brimmer Dan Gorst. Now, if you don't remember him, he is that character in that first book that has the duel with Giselle. So, I mean, that's a very, very important character. And it starts here. You see why this is a very, very important character, and you get so much more about him, and it's a character you just grow to love. So, again, these are the things I feel like it expands this world. That's really the biggest thing here, guys. It has those many connections to the original trilogy, so you're not going to feel like this is completely foreign, you don't know what's going on. But if you were one of those people who said, I want to get to know more about this giant map that this world has, I feel like we haven't really visited a lot of these places, this will show you all those places that you only heard about in conversations or speculation or just straight up exposition in that original trilogy. You can get to see them all here, and I think that helps just to make this world feel bigger and more alive, and getting to visit that, getting to meet new characters, and there are a lot of new characters in this. These, what do you really call this? I think some people called it like the first was the Back to the Mud trilogy. This one was the Great Leveler. I don't really know if there's actual a name for that. People just call it the Standalone trilogy. I've actually started calling it the Call Shivers trilogy because, like I said, he's the mainstay in all three of these books. So I call it what you will. I think it's an opportunity for you to see more of these secondary characters shine, get to visit new places. Like Styria is a really, really big one. Get to see more of Gurkle, get to see, the West and the East, all these places that they only kind of talked about the Great North, which is some places above where they went in the original trilogy, and get to see some of these strange new characters that you'll meet. And it's so much fun, guys. For me, it just feels like making this world even bigger. And I know that is one of the criticisms of the first trilogy. They felt like his character building was great, but his world building was kind of subpar. This is where he really does a little bit of both. He really does expand this map and really give you a lot of new locations and a lot of new characters, a lot of new good guys and bad guys and bad guys and bad guys for you to read about. So I think that with this, you also find that the fan base is very divided on these books. Some people will say that, like for myself, I think Best Served Cold is as good as the original trilogy. I think it stands right up there with it. Other people hate it. I think Red Country is by far my least favorite book in the First Law series overall, and there's other people who consider it the best. So I think it really is just going to show that there's something there for everybody, kind of what making all three of these so different and not feeling like 1, 2, and 3 or 7, 8, and 9. These books feel so different than the rest of the series, but it still feels familiar enough that you don't feel like you're in a different world or like an anthology fantasy series or something like that. There are still references to many, many of the events that happened in the original trilogy, and it sets the stage for a lot of stuff that does happen in the sequel trilogy. That's the thing about it, is I think that if you read the sequel trilogy without reading the standalones, there's lots of times in the sequel trilogy where characters will be having a conversation about something, and you can just consider it noise. You will just think, oh, it's just exposition, it's just trying to make this world seem bigger. If you've read these middle 3 books, a lot of those conversations will make so much more sense. You'll know who some of these characters are that characters visit in books 7, 8, and 9. So I think it's important for the idea that it fleshes out the world more and it'll give you more context. So basically, guys, I guess the answer is if you really did love the original trilogy and you want more of this world, yes, absolutely pick them up. I'm not guaranteeing you're going to love all 3 of them. Like I said, Red Country is just okay to me, but I think that the Heroes and obviously Best Served Cold are amazing books. So I definitely would say, if you did like the original trilogy, go ahead and pick it up. If you just thought the original trilogy was fine, you just want to read the sequel trilogy, you can do that. You can go right into it just like that, and all those characters from the first series that survived that you want to know about, they will be in the sequel trilogy for you, and you'll know everything that's going on. You'll know all the context clues that they're talking about. You just might miss some of the side things that they do bring up a lot in those books. So in the end, guys, it's still Abercrombie. It's still Abercrombie writing interesting new characters in this familiar world. So for me, I'm always going to be up for Joe writing in this sandbox that he's just gotten so good at. Give me all of the new characters, give me the returning characters, let me know once in a while, hey, what's going on with that one character from the original trilogy that I love. You'll get a mention or two. Sometimes it's just rumors because you are in such different locations and word travels slowly, and by the time it reaches your ears, sometimes it's quite different. Now, if you have read them and you want to know more, obviously, guys, I have done spoiler reviews for those way back when the channel first started. I don't think I'll be doing standard reviews like I did for the First Law trilogy recently. That's just a decision I made recently. It's not enough interest for that. But people do want to hear some of those spoiler discussions afterwards. Look, I cannot say that the production quality of the channel has gotten much better, obviously, during that time. So I can't say that you're going to enjoy watching those videos, but you know what? What I say in them, it will still remain the same. So maybe treat those as a podcast. You just listen with your ears, because my feelings on those things are still the same today as they were 3 years ago when I first started this channel. I had no idea what I was doing. I was just a podcaster at the time. So I think that much was apparent by how horrible my production quality was when I first started this channel. But you know what? I always felt like the sound was pretty good. So lots of First Law content on the channel, guys. Don't know why you would be watching this if you haven't at least read the first trilogy or have some kind of interest in First Law overall. So but if you haven't, guys, please read the First Law trilogy. I think it's one of the best fantasy series out there. And I do think that, yes, when someone asks me, should I read the First Law standalones, I'm going to say yes every time. Because like I said, it gives you so much stuff that you need to know. These aren't like novellas, guys. These are full novels that tell a really, really good story. It isn't just something like, oh, well, this is like a 0.5 book or something. It's not. These are full books, and I think you're going to enjoy them. Now, Sharp Ends is a different thing. That is just like a short story collection. That's really up to you. I think for that, that one, it has like one big question answered about the Bloody Nine and Bethad. It has one really big question answered in there that makes it worth reading, but it's not one of those things that if you haven't read it, you're going to be completely clueless on what somebody's talking about in Age of Madness or something. Not at all. I think of all of those, Sharp Ends could be the one that you could be like, you could read it anytime and get kind of the same thing out of it. Obviously, you want to read the first trilogy first, because there are lots of things it gives away about the original trilogy in it. But as for 4, 5, and 6, as I like to call them, best served cold, The Heroes, Red Country, yes, guys, please read them. Do not skip them. That's like skipping, when people always tell me, hey, if you're going to read the Realm of the Elderlings, don't skip the non-Fitz books. I feel the same way about this. Don't skip these, because you'll be missing out on a ton of fun if you do. So guys, that's really my short but sweet answer. Should you read the First Law standalones? Yes, you should. So guys, have you read the First Law standalones? What did you think? Why don't you drop in the comments and let me know, and I'll talk to you there.